It's a pleasure to be here because I think that astrology is one of the few things that can help us understand the craziness of what's happening right now. So I'm going to start by explaining what's going on in the cosmos at the moment and how it's affecting us, because a lot of you are feeling the pain of this particular experience, and there's a lot of reasons why it is so difficult. So if I can explain it, maybe sometimes it's easier than to understand it, because astrology is a language, and it's an archetypal language, and it's a language of understanding the patterns of human behavior and also of cosmic behavior. So it's I think it is probably the only thing on the planet that right now can explain what we're going through as a planet. And a year and a half ago, when I saw this weather pattern coming, I literally said to my students that starting in early 2020, life as we know it will never be the same. Something's coming down on us that's so, so big. And sure enough, this virus and everything that it's doing to us personally and also collectively and for the planet, if it's any comfort to realize that it's on time, that we were going to get something big. And in some ways, if it was big, it could have been even a lot worse. So I don't know if there's any comfort in that thought, but for me, there is, that most of us are safe. We have food on the table. We're living under a roof, and there's a lot to be grateful for. And one of the most important things I want to say in terms of having tools to get through this is that we are all being cosmically challenged at the moment. This is not easy, and for some particular signs, it's harder than for others. And I'll go through which ones are getting the most effects at the moment. But because of this pressure that we're feeling, we have a tendency to have our vibration, our energy go down. And we are just made of electromagnetic frequencies. And whenever anyone says, they don't believe in astrology or they don't understand how it works, all you have to do is get an EKG, an electric, whatever that's called. It's like we are electric systems, and we live in an electromagnetic universe. And our job with this pressure that's coming down on us is to try to raise our vibration rather than to sink, because we're under very, very heavy aspects to get feeling this dense kind of I can't breathe feeling, which is so perfect as a metaphor for what's happening collectively. And I actually did the chart of George Floyd just to see what that was all about at a symbolic level. And it was extremely fascinating. And I have a great deal of respect for him as a soul. And I believe, this is my personal opinion, I can't prove it, but I think that he had a soul contract to do something of incredible service. His chart was quite spectacular in terms of being an instrument and being a big change agent. And that is an amazing metaphor, as I said, that feeling that many of us have, like, oh my God, I'm suffocating under the mask. Like, look at all of us. We're all not breathing the way we normally would. And when I first predicted this massive thing that was going to change life as we knew it, the only thing I could tell was that it had something to do with the element of air. So air is breathing, and air is also the virus because it attacks the lungs. So air is both the solution and the problem. So one of the things to raise your vibration, and this is a very simple thing to do, and it works and it helps, is to every morning when you wake up, just think of 10 things that you're grateful for. And it could be as simple as saying, like right now, I've got a dog on the bed. Like, it can be, some days that's all you can be grateful for, is just the simplest things. And that's not small either, by the way. It's massive right now that I've got a place where I am, that I'm safe. You don't have to get big. It can be the tiniest little things. So when you do that every morning, and the reason why it's important to do it first thing in the morning is because if you ever notice that when you first wake up, if you have a bad morning, usually the whole day doesn't go very well. So you want to start it off that way, because literally being in a place of gratitude is instantly going to raise your vibration. And so it helps to build up your electromagnetic force field so that when all this stuff starts coming at us from the news or whatever, you just have a little bit more strength there to deal with what's going on. So basically what's happening right now is that we are getting completely squeezed. It's like we're a little piece of clay, and the universe is saying, you know what, guys, you did not really get a lot of things right. So we are going to come in here and we're going to reconfigure you. All right. We're in the process of, like, I don't know if you guys remember Play-Doh, when you would put it in that little machine and it turns out into other little shapes. We are all, as a human beings, we're all getting collectively reconfigured, and then we're going to come out the other way something differently. So Shelley was just asking me, like, how long do I think this is going to last? And unfortunately, or fortunately, we can't look at this as a negative thing. Whenever there's a rebirth, it's always a bit painful, but I believe it's going to last another 1.5 to 2 years before we start feeling like the mask is off and we can start breathing again, because that's what's happening right now. Look, we're all on these tiny little screens looking at each other. We're not in the same space. I mean, space is a big word right now. And part of it is about realizing that we need to be connected, and not only to each other, but to the earth in a different way. We have to take things like how we take care of the soil and recycling and the water. And we also have to think about space, literally the planets. How I make a living is studying the patterns of the planets. We are connected to those rocks in space that are floating around. And anyone who tries to think that we're not is going to get even more, they're going to feel more pressure from this change that we're going through, because the more we're in alignment with the fact that we are part of the entire electromagnetic universe, the ground, the sky, each other. It's a 4-dimensional thing, not a 2-dimensional thing. So one of the interesting things about this time is not only that there's a Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto conjunction that most of you don't know what that means, but that's what every astrologer saw that was coming in early 2020. We've got that going on, but on top of it, and this is why I know we're not done with our big giant transformation, we also have 5 planets that are retrograde. That means that they appear to be going backwards in the sky. And right now, starting today, Mercury went retrograde. We're going to do a little workshop here about Mercury and your Mercury sign. So all of you who have not looked up your Mercury sign, please look it up on the Mercury calculator, because you need that in order to participate. And what would be really useful too, while I'm talking, if you want to look up someone you're having difficulties with right now, find out their Mercury sign, or someone that you're having a good time with, either, doesn't matter. But you'll be able to understand why some people are more difficult for you to deal with than some others. So anyway, all these planets, not only do we have the trio of those 3 I mentioned, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, doing this like massive push on us, but now we've got all these other 5 planets retrograde, including Mercury. So when things go retrograde, it means backwards, and it means you can't go forward. And it's very interesting. I was just telling Shelley, I just made this realization that I've always realized that my body often copies whatever's going on in the universe. So right now I've got a shoulder injury and I can't swim freestyle. I can't go forward. The only way I can swim is backwards. So I'm realizing, I mean, I got to get this taken care of, but I'm being forced literally to go backwards. And guess what? I don't like it as much as going forward, but is it bad? Hey, no, at least I can still swim. But it's something to think about, that retrograde does not mean negative. So when people all freak out about Mercury retrograde, which by the way, it started today and it goes until July 12th. So what is happening is that we are being asked with the planet of Mercury, which deals with the brain and how we're thinking, to go into reverse. Okay, that's what we've all done. We've all gone into reverse with being in our homes. We're not doing anything the way we used to do. We have to break every single pattern. So reverse doesn't have to be negative, because think about your car when you're trying to back it out of the garage. Aren't you really happy you have a reverse gear? Like, we have to stop thinking about everything as, oh my God, this is all so terrible. There's something positive in everything. And it's the hard aspects in a natal chart that shape a person. So I always tell people, you don't want to wish for an easy chart because it's usually kind of boring. So right now, we as a collective group of humans, we are having very hard aspects and they are shaping us. So something good's going to come out of this. I think something very profound. And imagine like 20 years from now going to the Smithsonian Institute and seeing a display about this time. It'll be, you know, it'll be quite something. The younger generation will ask questions about what was that like living through the pandemic of 2020. So not only do we have Mercury retrograde, but in September, starting September 9th until November 14th, we have Mars going retrograde. So mark those dates in your calendar because Mars is the red planet and it's the planet that has to do with physical action and warfare. So you think of words like martial arts or anything to do with MAR, is even the words Martha and Mark, those are all names derived from the planet Mars. It's an aggressive planet. So when it goes retrograde, it means there's something funky going on there during that time where we're going to feel even more like we can't go forward. So that's why when Shelley said, well, how long is this going to last? We just have pattern after pattern of this for another, basically another 2 years. And then on top of it, right now, which is pretty massive, we've got the season of these eclipses. They usually come 2 at a time, and this time we got 3. So we had one early in June. We have another one coming up on June 20th, and that's the summer solstice. So the fact that we have a solar eclipse on top of the summer solstice, my God, June 20th is massive. And you usually feel them about a week before and a week after. So it's very unexpected things that go on during this time. I think it's a great time to lay low. The other big date for the eclipse is July 5th, which is just after the anniversary of our country. And our country is certainly going through the little Play-Doh machine and coming out the other end as something else. So we have to keep our eye on the prize, and we got to take what we've got and make what we want out of it. I'm not saying any of this is easy. It's a very strange time. It feels sort of elusive. The boundaries and what's true and what's not true. Everything feels very strange. And my way of coping with it at the moment, you're probably gonna laugh when I tell you this, but I've been watching like Andy Griffith and I Dream of Jeannie, Bewitched, even the Flintstones. They're helping me. I'm just remembering times when it wasn't so complicated. Like those days are over. We're going into a whole new, I don't even know how to describe what life will be like in 2 years. We couldn't have even described this 6 months ago. It would have been incomprehensible that we'd all be seeing each other on these little Zoom calls. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about what I've said so far about what's going on right now? Shelley, someone's asking a question. She's raising her hand. Can you help her with that?
So far it's mostly people writing what their signs are. I dropped in there again for Anne, the link so that you could figure out what your Mercury sign is.
Yeah, they don't need to tell me personally yet, so they can hold
they're just right, but that's a lot of what's going on here. So I don't.
There's a question down.
Yeah.
You see her? She had her arm raised.
I don't. I just wrote Anne, I did just put the link back in there for her to be able to find her calculator, her sign on the calculator. But Kelly just asked a question, and that is, what is Trump's sign?
Trump is Gemini, and 2 personality, 2 sides. He has a very, very fascinating chart. I don't want to get into that right now, but if anyone's interested, I'm thinking of, I don't know how to do this, but I would love to do a class, Shelley, sometime on just everything that's going on and looking at everyone from a place of compassion. As an astrologer, everyone is the way they are. So some people are a rhinoceros, some people are giraffes. I don't try to criticize them, but it's fascinating Trump has one of the most fascinating charts. When it's good, it's really good, and when it's bad, it's really bad.
Okay, you actually do have a few questions that dropped in really quickly. Is there anything, oh, they're moving so fast. Is there anything specifically we should not do at this time?
Yes, you should not try to move forward too fast. If you ever have a big decision you have to make during this very retrograde time, you need to take 3 days. That's what the ancient Aboriginal people used to do. And we need to get back to these older places of wisdom. Take 3 days before you make a big decision. And by the way, another big tip for life, if anyone is in a rush to get you to make a decision, you need to walk away. It's automatically a bad thing. If you look at your life and look at whether it's a salesman trying to get you to buy something or somebody who wants you to join a company with them, whenever there's this big push, you need to walk away. You need to take your time, especially now, 3 days. Think about it. Sit with it. Think about me doing the backstroke. We're all supposed to be going backwards, not forward. Okay, so don't push anything. It's not a good idea right now.
Okay, someone asked again if you could please repeat. I know you said it was in September when Mars is in retrograde.
Sure, September 9th through November 14th.
Okay, and then, yep, here we go. Mars, they're asking about Mars. We just answered that. And what if someone is adopted and they don't know their birth date or birth time?
Yeah, that's tough if you don't, like there are a lot of babies from China that have no idea what day they were born. And even in the Middle East, a lot of times people didn't write down when their child was born. So if you have an idea, there can be certain things that that will be pretty accurate. So even with the Mercury, if you put a few dates in there, if you think your birth date is around a certain time, it'll be pretty close. If you don't have the time, that's a lot easier to deal with. A chart can always be rectified, and it takes a long time, but if you ask just the right questions, you can sort of work backwards into putting the planets into the chart in the right way. But not having a birth date is really tricky.
I know the answer, but I'll let you answer it. Are you able to do charts for people?
Yes, that's what I do for a living, and I have a place on my website. It's just lesliemcguirk.com where you can sign up for readings. I do half-hour or hour readings. I think there's like a 6-week wait at the moment, but the other thing I love to do, which I'm more interested in doing now, is teaching people how to read charts. I see a lot of my students are on this call. But once you learn astrology, guys, you will never look at life the same. You will have a tool in your toolbox that will help you for forever because you'll be able to understand everybody and everything. And after just 8 hours of instruction, I can get you up and running. I'm not going to say you're going to be great, but you'll have enough to have it as a tool. And that's really what my obsession is right now, is I want to teach more people how to access this ancient wisdom that's been around for thousands of years. And I think because I used to write and illustrate children's picture books, I have a really fun and visual way of teaching astrology without using a lot of jargon. So anyway, if any of you are interested in that, just email me.
Okay, we'll just do a few more, I think, so you can move on. Otherwise, I'm afraid this will just keep going and you won't get to do your presentation. So what does Mars in retrograde mean for the election?
Yeah, exactly. Things will not go as planned for sure, probably. I don't know. And to tell you the truth, I have not looked at the election date because I have a lot of anxiety about it. So I don't really want to know yet. I'm trying to watch the Flintstones, guys. I'm trying to like not get involved in the anxiety of it all. So I'm just doing what I can to raise my vibration and just help people. And I will, as we get closer, I will take a look. And if we decide to do some kind of class about the different political things, that I would definitely look at it for that. But I tend to live my life doing the best I can every day, so I don't let astrology rule me, all right? I did pretty much know back in 2016 that I didn't think Hillary was a shoo-in, so I kind of knew something was up with that. So, but people have free will, and an astrologer can see patterns, but we never know exactly how it's going to shape out. No one knows that. So remember, astrology is just an archetypal language. I do not believe in fortune telling. It's a way of seeing how things are designed. And then it's like a meteorologist. Like, I can tell we're going to have a hurricane. I predicted that, but I didn't know which houses were going to get, you know, pulverized. You can't tell specifics, but you can tell the general feeling tone of something for sure. And that's, like, I think astrology is 95% accurate. You can ask any of my clients, you know, total strangers that I talk to all the time. That's pretty much how accurate it is. And that's just not me. It's also that it is an esoteric science, and it's just like music. And I can read your musical score. I can play it back for you, metaphorically speaking, and it will resonate. It will be accurate. So I'm just so happy that more and more people are getting interested in astrology, and it's no longer considered what it was, which was horoscopes in the back of magazines. I don't even care what your sun sign is. I don't even find that interesting. So Mercury sign, which is what we're going to do now, is far more interesting. And especially if you're single, you want to know if the person you're interested in has a Mercury sign that's compatible with yours. So the two planets that are the most important to know about any human being are the moon sign and the Mercury sign, because the moon tells me about your emotions and the Mercury sign tells me about how you communicate. So to understand your children, your husband, your business partner, you want to be able to understand how they were created and designed so that you don't fight what is. All right, not everyone is going to be just like you. This is a humongous thing to be aware of. We all tend to think everyone should be just like us. It's just human nature. And that's where astrology, I call it the language of compassion, because once you understand the way other people are created, you then are more at peace. And you're like, oh, no wonder that person drives me crazy, because they've got this and they're all fire and I'm all water. What does fire and water do? They have, you know, evaporate each other or put each other out. So it doesn't have to be bad, but boy, you got to be aware of it. That's for sure.
So just these last two comments and I'll let you move on. There are many, many people commenting about your classes and your charts, and people are asking about websites. I will drop everything as soon as we close off the question part. I will re-put in the chat all the Leslie's information so you can connect with her. And I have to say firsthand that Leslie did a chart with me and it was an amazing experience. I can't recommend it enough. And I look forward to taking one of her classes, hopefully in the near future.
I'd love it. Once you get into it, like most of my students, they stay together as a group for like years and years, because it's so much, it's fun. And during this pandemic, to find something that can absorb your brain and be endlessly fascinating. How many things on this planet are endlessly fascinating? Astrology is. Once you get in, it's like going down a rabbit hole, and all of a sudden all the mysteries of life start to become clear. It's unbelievably powerful and fun. And healing.
So your the last question, and then I'll let you move on. And I'll search through the chat and pull out any questions I missed. So I apologize. But do you have one coming up? When is your next class on astrology? And then I'll shut off my microphone and let you move on.
It was in July, but because of my shoulder, I think the universe is telling me to slow down. Oh my gosh, I'm imagining it might be end of July, early August. Yeah, because I have to slow down. Listen, guys, I got to take my own advice, right? So, it's not easy for me. I want to go forward. I'm like the most forward person you could imagine. So retrograde, being cooped up, all this is not easy for me, but I'm trying to take my own advice that I'm giving you. All right, ready to go. All right, so we're going to do the Mercury signs now. So every single human being knows their sun sign, all right? But most people don't realize that you have also other signs for the other planets. So basically all of these planets, at the moment you take your breath, those planets, which are all up in the sky, they pop into star formations. And the star formations are the zodiac signs. So your sun sign, let's say your sun is in Gemini, Mercury, the planet, is always really close to the sun. So your Mercury sign will either be the same as your sun sign or one before or one after, because they're always traveling around in the sky really close together. Remember, they plop up into the sky into a zodiac sign. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to go through the 12 Mercury signs. And remember, whatever I describe, I'm just talking about your communication style and how you use words. If we were doing a class on the moon sign only tells me about how you are going to react emotionally, especially if there's something difficult going on. So the moon is a different sign usually than the Mercury sign. So they could be very opposite, very different. So remember, for this class, we're just doing communication. And guys, you should definitely try to get my book too, The Power of Mercury, because it has in the back, you know, a little chart where you can look it up really easily, and then descriptions of everybody's Mercury sign, and then you can compare them. So it's like a little recipe book where you can see, oh, I'm cinnamon and he's nutmeg. How does that flavor, how does that work together? So that's what we're doing today. We're looking at all your different flavors. And there's nothing the matter with any of them, but some of them are considered more auspicious than others, and I'll let you know which ones those are. So we're going to start with Mercury Aries. How many of you have Mercury Aries? And Shelley, is there a way for me to talk to the Mercury Aries people?
How would you like to do that?
Well, if you could just pick out one or two Mercury, have them raise their hand or something, and just after I talk, I'd love to like dialogue with them and ask if it's true and just get some feedback. It's more interesting for the class to find out if I'm accurate rather than me just talking about it.
Okay, so if you either raise your hand, I'll try to move this to gallery, either raise your hand, or in the bottom of the screen is the reaction button, and you can see on my picture a little thumbs up. So if Leslie's asking something and it is you, then we can try to unmute a couple of those people. Is that what you like to do, so you can talk?
Yeah,
to
I talk to them. So if you could ask, like, who's a Mercury Aries, just put your little thumb up, and then Shelley will unmute those of you that she's, I only need two or three.
Okay, so it looks like Maria might be one of them. So I'm trying to unmute you, Maria. There it goes.
Hello.
Okay, good. Even if it's one, that's good too. Hey, Maria, I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Okay.
All right, good. Okay, so I'm going to describe Mercury Aries, and you tell me if it's accurate. If I'm not accurate, it's because there's something else going on in the chart that would influence this planet. So I'm going to be probably about 70% accurate with this group because I'm not looking at the whole picture. We're just looking at one thing, and there could be other influences. Okay, Mercury Aries. The way you talk, Maria, is extremely direct. You have no problem saying it like it is. And if you're under stress, you will lay it out. And you're also able to fight for what you believe in. There's nothing meek about you in terms of how you use your voice and how you communicate with people. So it's considered a very strong placement. Aries is a very masculine sign, and it's ruled by the planet Mars, which I already told you is about, you know, aggression and force. So you have a very strong mind, a very strong opinions, and a strong way of getting your point across. Would you agree with that?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay, what do you do for work? Because Mercury Aries people, they need to have like a platform to do what they do, because everything is like, you know, like get it out there.
Yes, I'm a college professor.
Perfect. Okay, great. You can hold your own. All right. That's all right. Perfect. So we don't need to have another one. She was good evidence. And you'll see, guys, as we get going, how incredibly interesting it is, because every one that I do in this order is in revolt against the one before. So what I just described about Maria, we're now going to move on to Mercury Taurus. It's completely different. So we got a couple waving their hands there. You want to unmute somebody? See Shireen?
Say something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Am
Awesome.
I unmuted?
Nice to see you. Okay, great. Okay, so Mercury Taurus. So you're very different than Maria. Think about Taurus. It's a bull in a field just chewing on some grass. Doesn't tend to speak up unless they get provoked. They tend to be very much more passive with words. They tend to have very fine minds, very grounded, very practical. They're not prone to making impulsive decisions. Taurus, as I said, is an earth sign. So it doesn't have that snappy kind of aggressive feeling to it. It's more passive, laid back. But again, if somebody pushes you hard enough, you'll come out with those horns and you will fight, but it's not your first line of action there. So can you agree with what I just said, or?
Totally, that's totally me. And I'm semi-retired right now. So, and I'm being very passive in my field.
In your field, what were you doing in your field? I forget.
Sales and marketing.
Okay, so you make Mercury Taurus people, I think it's pleasant, it's gentle, it's softer. They don't make great fighters usually. You know, if you're going to pick a prosecuting attorney, you want somebody more like Maria. So it's a very solid, stable, nice placement, and you're good. So all right, good, perfect. Now we're going to go on to Mercury Gemini, which is air. All right, you see Leah over there dancing, and
I certainly do. Okay, Leah, you're unmuted, and Cindy,
okay, you're on. All right.
There's two of
You're
them.
the lucky one in the room because Mercury is in love with being in Gemini. That's where so you're the smartest person here. Okay, this is a great thing to have. It's considered an exalted placement because it's where Gemini is in rulership in Mercury. So you are very quick-witted. You have a cleverness to you, and you're usually very good with words. This makes for anyone who's great with writing. Usually people who have this enjoy crossword puzzles or any kind of word games. It's like a love of language, a love of words. They love to read. It's a very active mind. It's all about air, so it's all up here in the head all the time. And you pretty much can get along with just about anybody, any other sign. So that's the other thing about having a nice placement. When the sign, when the planet is in the sign it most likes to be in, it's just like, well, it's just like driving around a little Ferrari. Your brain is just, you know, cruising, and you kind of do well with everybody else. So can you agree with what I just said, all these flattering things about you?
Oh, yes, thank you. I'm a hairdresser, so I definitely feel like I have to get along with many types of people.
Oh my
And
God,
that,
you know, talk all day. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, the only negative thing about Mercury Gemini,
Mhm.
sometimes you can't get them to shut up because they
Oh.
just.
Yeah, but I do get people out sometimes. I don't know what that's about. Sometimes the people quota gets met, and then I need to like go home and be alone. You know?
Oh, I mean, my God, you're a hairdresser. That's like, I mean, mentally, has anyone ever thought about what a hard job that is mentally, where you have
It's
to?
like being a very underpaid psychologist.
Yes, well, that's exactly what I'm getting at. Because you're chatty, you know. A hairstylist, if Maria was a hairstylist, she'd be like totally different. Not like that job. I tell you, that would not be a good profession for Mercury Aries people. All right.
Cindy's also unmuted. They're right next to each other on my screen. Also, just let me say that because we're on multiple screens, it's really hard for me to see you if you're putting your hand up. So if you are what Leslie's saying and you just write your name in the chat, that's much faster for me. Then I'll be able to see everybody, and then I'll get you unmuted because I don't want to leave anyone out. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Leslie.
Okay, so Cindy, you're a Mercury Gemini too?
Right.
All right. So can you explain what I described? Does it fit with your life and what you do?
Absolutely.
Can you give an example?
I'm a volunteer coordinator for a hospice.
No, yeah.
So you use words all the time, and you get along with everybody, and yeah, it's just it's like air, you know. It's like you breathe in, you breathe, the words come in and out. I mean, think about it. Words are invisible. It's an invisible thing. You can't even see them. I mean, you see them when they're on the paper, but it's just something that's felt. And actually, astrology is the same. Astrology is something that's felt. You can't see it. It's like air, and the whole system of astrology is something that you experience. And so that was a perfect example of Mercury Gemini with your job. It's great. You're very good with words. You're good with language. You're good with chatting with people. So perfect.
I'm pretty funny.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I did say that. Clever, funny. light. There's a light, think about air as light, you know? So when Mercury is in air, it's like, yeah, we get to talk a lot, we get to converse, we get to have all this interaction. They love it. Okay, next is Mercury Cancer, which is what I was born with. So you guys who have this with me, we are all the same. So you want to pick a few people?
Okay, so Laura Baxter, she put herself in the chat. If you want to unmute yourself, Laura, and if there are any other cancers and you want to write that in the chat, we'll know that you also
Okay.
would be next.
Hi,
Okay.
Leslie.
Hi, Laura. So you and I are the same. And here's what, so where these guys were all chit-chatty all the time, Mercury Cancer is like, zip it up. We don't really need to talk that much. In fact, it can actually exhaust us. But we are known for being the one sign in the zodiac that despises arguing. Like if we even hear people fighting, we will feel physically ill from it. We don't like it. This is water. Water wants to be like calm in a lake, you know, soft and gentle, or like in a bathtub. And so the good thing about Mercury Cancer, especially if you hire me as an astrologer, you know I'll be kind because I'm not going to say anything to upset you, okay? So that's part of what's nice about Mercury Cancer. The downside of Mercury Cancer is that we're wimpy. When there's a conflict, we do what crabs do. We go hide in our little holes and we're like, oh my God, I don't want to fight. You know, we don't stand up for ourselves sometimes. So when there's conflict, Mercury Cancer is the worst of all the zodiac signs at trying to stand in their truth and fight for themselves. It takes a lot for us to do that. So can you relate to that, Laura?
You know, I can relate to that. And in fact, I think I'm more likely to stand up for someone else than for myself.
That's
Yeah.
very accurately true. Yeah, so perfect. That's, yeah, I'll fight. Listen to how I'm talking now. I'm like aggressive and you know, because I'm helping you guys. But if I'm like just left to my own devices, my tongue and how I speak it's much like how I speak is softer. So that's perfectly. But you agree you hate fighting, right?
Oh gosh, yes. In fact, I have felt guilty at how wimpy I can be.
Yeah, there we go. See, guys, we're only 4 in, and I'm telling you, this way of looking at people in life, it is so unbelievably accurate. Shelley has, I think Shelley, you've seen me, yeah, of course, where I take like 100 people and move them all around the room, and you see it, and like it works. And this is just what I call baby food astrology. Can you imagine if you study with me for 2 years, like some of the people on here have, and you keep going deeper and deeper, and a couple of you have made comments over there. They can tell you what it's like. It is so interesting, and it's so wonderful to know that there's this beautiful, I think it's a God thing, because it's like perfect to describe people and come at it with love and compassion for what they are.
You have,
Okay, thanks, Laura. So
you have okay, because so you have 3 more. I didn't know if you wanted Karen, Donna, Judy are all Cancer as well, but I don't know if you wanted to talk to anyone else or move on.
Let's move on, because if we do too many for each one, it'll get to be overwhelming. As long as the person I'm talking with, the first one, agrees with me, I'll stick with it. Because as I said, there will be somebody who will be like, no, that doesn't sound like me. And it's because it's not that I'm wrong, it's that I'm not looking at the whole chart. Okay. So Mercury in Leo, the lion, where are you?
Katie, you want to unmute yourself, Katie? We got a me that came up quickly.
I was ready.
Hi, Katie.
Hi.
All right, so Mercury, Leo, fire. So you're the opposite of the Cancer, like me and Laura. You're like, people with Mercury, Leo is very dramatic because it's a lion. And like when you talk, a lot of times will you say things like, oh my God, I love that dress. Oh, your hair looks so great. Like there's this overly excited way of like describing things that you love, because it's very passionate, it's very heated, it's kind of dramatic. And there's this sort of playful way of entertaining and engaging people with your words. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Can you give an example?
I feel like if I have a playlist on and songs like one after the other come on, I'm like, oh, I love this song. Like I feel
everything is like, oh my God, I love this. This is so great. And I mean, it's not like other signs don't do that too, but if you look at over the course of your day or how you engage with people, it's fire. So fire is sparky and sassy, and the only negative of Mercury Leo is that sometimes you can be a little over dramatic and a little sparky, and you have no trouble saying it like it is. Not quite as much as Mercury Aries, which is a lot more pointed, but it's quite entertaining too. Like, do some people think you're funny?
I guess so. I don't know. My friend Daniela's on here. Maybe she'll chime in.
But it's quite, like I say, it's outgoing, it's entertaining, everything's larger than life. It's not just, a little grain of salt. It's like a boulder-sized grain of salt. Everything is dramatic and bigger with words for you, okay? Good. Okay, we'll go on to Mercury Virgo. Mercury Virgo is Kelly.
Kelly and Louise. I think we got two me's right on top of each other.
All right. So which one am I talking to?
Whoever talks back.
Oh, who's talking to me? Kelly, are you unmuted?
I'm unmuted, yes.
Nice to see you. Okay. So Mercury in Virgo. Now I know Kelly, and what I'm now going to say about her, I know is 100% true. Okay. So Virgo is the opposite of Leo. Remember, everyone I do is in revolt against the one before. So where Katie is like, let me entertain you. Kelly is like completely obsessed with everything being in alignment, correct. It's a very persnickety sign. That would be the negative part of it. Like, their attention to detail is unbelievable. If you want to hire somebody to organize an event, which is what she does for a living, she's your girl, because this is someone whose mind is like a steel trap about details and about making sure everything is done right. It's an unbelievable brain for organization, for keeping things in check. And this is why people should use astrology for hiring people. Like, if you need someone to do a particular job and they're not hardwired for that job, then you're better off finding someone who is. So Kelly, would you agree with everything I've said?
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's why you're so good at what you do. However, the problem, everything has a negative. The problem is that they can be so perfectionistic, they're like little dental hygienists with words, like scraping off every little thing. Like, everything's got to be right. Do people ever get frustrated because you're so accurate and precise about stuff?
Oh yeah, definitely. Especially when you are working in a team environment if you have someone working as a co-chair or something like that. If you're not exactly on the same page, it can be challenging.
Well, it's going to be challenging for you because you have very high expectations. And here's a perfect example of why we tend to see the view through our lens. So you see the world through Mercury Virgo. And then when you're in a meeting and other people are like Mercury Aries and Mercury Cancer and Mercury, you're like, what the hell are you doing? You guys are, the details are not being taken care of. You're going to go crazy. So that's why it's helpful for you to just realize not many people are going to be just like you in this talent that you've got. And by the way, you and Leah have the best brains. I'm just being facetious in a way, but you guys have the two places where Mercury both likes to be the most. So it's considered a very good thing to have Mercury in Virgo. And they also make really great editors, proofreaders, anything to do with detail. Their brains are just like obsessed with that stuff. Whereas like Maria, she would hate that kind of stuff.
Very true.
See?
Very true.
Yeah, it's just not her thing. And so it's not a bad thing. We got to go with where our natural aptitudes are. And it's funny, I'll tell you a quick story. When I was like 18, my parents sent me to do a Johnson O'Connor aptitude test because they were so worried about me. And so they put me in these different rooms for 2 days. And it wasn't an intelligence test. It was just about what is your natural aptitude. Instead of spending all that money doing all that, they should have, well, my mother did the next year send me to an astrologer because she was still worried about me, because when they came out with the results, my parents will never forget, they were praying that the guys were going to tell me, your daughter needs to have a career in advertising. And they said, sorry, that's not it. Her imagination is off the chart. She can't work for other people. They were like all these things. And then they just left with their head down like, oh no, what are we going to do with her? Anyway, Sorry, we want to go with what you're good at. Don't fight your wiring. All right, next is Mercury Libra.
Danielle, quickly. We
Danielle,
jumped
where
in
are you?
fast.
Danielle is where?
Right, I'm here.
There she
Hey,
is.
Danielle.
Hi.
Okay, Mercury Libra. This is also a very refined placement. So it's a little bit like Virgo, but a little more chill. Whereas Kelly will get very kind of stubborn and intense and kind of fixed about how she wants to do what she thinks should happen. You're going to be the classic kind of legal mind, because Libra is the sign of the scale. So remember, they're always balancing. So the negative of this is that sometimes you'll weigh things so much that you can be indecisive. You're like, oh, should I do this or should I do that? Or the positive of it is that you're very fair, very balanced. You like things to be even. And one woman I know who had this, she was a mother, and when she used to do the Easter eggs, she would count and make sure every child got the same number of colored eggs as everybody else. Like everything had to be just so. So can you relate to this, Danielle?
Yeah, I think like I'll state something that I feel to be true, like in a statement, and then I'll be like, but of course the other side to this is da 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 da. So if I'm gonna be solid about something, I'm gonna have to tell you that you could see it another way, and I understand that, and I know that, and I like recognize it.
Yeah, that's
It's important to me.
If you're in a relationship with somebody who's not an air sign Mercury, they're gonna go crazy. Like, well, which is it? They will, like Katie and Maria with their fire sign, they'll be like, I like the blue dress. And you'll be like, well, I could kind of see where the green one could be nice. Or you could wear, and then you're gonna make people crazy because they're gonna be like, just pick one. That's the only negative to Mercury and Libra, but that's a perfect example of how it works. Thank you.
Fast
Okay.
question, Leslie. Someone's asking, is it harder if your Mercury is in your same sun sign?
No, it doesn't. It just means you get a double whammy of whatever I'm describing. You have a little double whammy of this energy. So that's all. It's very common. Like I have this double whammy. My sun sign is Cancer and my Mercury is Cancer. It's quite common because remember I told you Mercury is always very close to the sun as they travel around in space. So they're always going to be one or two close to it. Okay, next is Mercury Scorpio.
Oh my goodness. So if she said it, go ahead and unmute yourself because you're all putting it in so quick. I don't even want to say a name and get the other people upset. So go for it and unmute yourself and start talking to Leslie.
Hello, it's
Hi, Leslie.
Hey, Les.
Uh-oh, they're all doing it at once. I'm going to stick with Amy. I heard her first. Sorry, I'm just picking. Amy Hunter.
Hi there.
Mercury Scorpio. Okay, I'm going to describe you. You tell me if it's right.
Okay.
So this is water, and it's the what I call the scuba diver of life. You are obsessed with deep conversations. You do not like chit chat. You want, if some conversation doesn't have meaning, you're like, all right, I'm done, hang up the phone. Very intense, very passionate about certain topics. And if you're in a relationship with someone, if they don't want to have these deep, soulful, meaningful conversations, you're going to be like, this is not doing it for me. You have to go deep. So it's like you don't like snorkeling. You want to go scuba diving with words, with intensity, with depth. And so you're probing constantly. Your mind is never satisfied with just, the surface of anything. You just want to find out the deepest meaning of everything. Does that make sense?
That's right on. Not only am I a diver, but sometimes I'll go by people and I won't start a conversation because I can't just stand the little chit chat.
Right. So if you're in a relationship or you have a child who's much better at chit chat, like Leah or Katie or Maria, or not necessarily Maria, but Katie and Leah for sure, you have to understand they need it. That's what they thrive on. And so we have a tendency to get irritated with people who are not doing it the way we do it. Very few people have, 1 out of 12 people has the same thing as you, Mercury and Scorpio. You're very comfortable with other water and earth Mercuries, but the other ones will drive you cuckoo crazy.
You're
Okay?
right on.
Yeah, and you're a little bit intolerant of people who are just chatting and spreading words with no substance to them. You're like, oh my God, I'm just like over it. So
Yeah.
I'm very sensitive, but it's like, you know, you're like no nonsense about what matters to you and what you want to talk about, right?
True, true.
All right, so thank you guys for being so honest, because some of these things, I'm telling you both the positive and the negative. Okay, Mercury Sagittarius, this is my favorite one to talk about.
Hi, Leslie.
Hi, Leslie.
Betty, I saw
Yeah.
Betty first. Okay, sorry guys, whoever I see first, I'm going with. Okay, Betty, so you have Mercury Sagittarius. Is your sun sign Sagittarius too?
No.
No, okay. All right, so Mercury Sagittarius is tricky because the symbol for Sagittarius is half man, half horse, and he's a hunter, and he's got a bow and arrow, and he's got fire at the end, okay? When you speak, you are unbelievably direct, like Maria, another fire one, but yours has a weapon on the end, and you can slice and dice a person if you're not careful, and you don't think anything of it because you're just doing your bullseye, kind of like, you could be like a, you know, an assault weapon sometimes, or when done well, you are so brilliant and smart that you can hit the bullseye every time with words. So it's a very precise, verbally intense, kind of go right for it kind of Mercury. So in a job, I don't know what you do for a living, but this is a great placement for anyone who needs to fight or make very definite points or go after things. So what do you do for a living?
I'm retired now, but I was an office manager for 30 years.
So you had to like control all the people.
Yes.
And do they have a nickname for you?
Dragon woman. But
I was going to say tiger lady.
But no, I had tact. Yeah.
You what? Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, because the thing with the arrow is that when done well, you get the bullseye and it's very concise. It's great for an office manager, as long as you have the awareness of when you're using it as a weapon or when it's just on target. Without the tact is a rough thing, because what happens is you can leave people bleeding by the side of the road, and then the next day you come back and you're like, what's your problem? I just didn't mean anything by that. And they're like, no, you said this to me and I'm still hurting from it. You ever had people say that to you?
Yeah, my husband.
Betty, did you look up his Mercury sign?
He is a Scorpio.
Okay, so he's like Amy. He's water. Sometimes you're a little much and you put each other out. So you need to get my book and read about how to make that combination work.
I just ordered it.
Oh, good. This is where it can help so much. Now, everything else in your chart might be glorious and beautiful, but your husband, from his perspective, you are sometimes a little too like, okay, so think about it. Pull back your weapon once in a while, especially with him, because he can't handle it. That's just not how he likes to communicate. He's from a different planet than you. He's from the water planet. You're from the fire planet. Water and fire, you got to let it make steam. Steam is nice, but putting each other out, not so good.
Got it. Okay, great. Thank you.
And he requires what Amy needs is like lots of deep, soulful conversations. And you're like, you can just handle so much of that.
No, actually, we're the opposite.
Oh, really? He doesn't want it then?
No,
huh?
there must be something else in his chart that says
Something else is going on. But
Yeah.
read my book and it'll help you. Okay?
Great.
Okay, next, Sagittarius. So Capricorn is next. Mercury Capricorn. Ellen Costa, unmute yourself. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. All right, so we're now in revolt against everything I just said. So Mercury Capricorn is Earth, and Capricorn is the goat. And the goat is slowly climbing up a hill. So when it comes to words, you are very careful about what you say, and everything is going to be thought about, and then you're going to, like, piece by piece, put your words together and have a plan, and it's kind of steady and practical, and As you get older, it gets more playful, but when you're younger, it tends to be a very serious kind of mind who's not prone to doing crazy, wild things out in the world. Am I right about that?
You nailed it.
Talk about it. You explain it to people.
Yeah, I'm very tactical, and
That's a perfect word.
I've been in financial services for about 30 years. So the people that I work with at the corporate level, I'm pretty careful about how I frame things so that things are well understood, well positioned, so they understand how to get to the next place with.
That's it. It's very much building blocks as you climb the mountain. It's the type of mind you want to have with your financial planner. That's a very beautiful job that you have for how you were designed. So that's great. And it makes people feel safe. Okay. So that's perfect. Okay. Next is Mercury Aquarius.
Hi.
Susan?
Yes, good afternoon, ladies.
Hi, Susan. Okay, so Mercury Aquarius. Aquarius is air. Even though the symbol of the constellation is the water bearer, Aquarius is an air sign. Are you a sun sign Aquarius too?
I don't know what that means, please.
When's your birthday?
January 30.
So you are an Aquarius too, on top of being a Mercury Aquarius. So she's a double whammy Aquarius. All right. So what this means is that you, with words, tend to be very accepting of all different types. It's a very humanitarian placement. Usually people who have Mercury in Aquarius, they're thinking of the big picture and they're sort of diffuse with everything and everybody. I think the only negative thing about this is that sometimes if you're in a relationship with one of the water or earth people, they feel like you go out on too many weird tangents. People who have this, they tend to be very open to all sorts of things, to the point where they can get kind of diluted by spreading out like a little dandelion puff that just scatters everywhere. Hard to rein you in, my dear. So the opposite of Ellen, where Ellen is like tactical building like this, you're like, woo, let's go out here. Does that make sense, Susan?
You are spot on, and I thank you for your time.
What do you do for work, or did you do?
I have two hats I wear, girls. I'm a certified nurse and executive assistant, so I went to school for several things.
Okay. Well, Mercury Aquarius pretty much gets along. All the air people, Mercury air people get along pretty much with everybody there. But the negative of all the air, sometimes they get a little too out there, a little too scattered. And then the earth people want to bring them back in.
Yes.
Okay, and then the water people are all emotional, and then the fire people are all feisty. Okay, last one is Mercury Pisces, water.
Me, Leslie.
Chandra?
Yeah, Chandra. Uh-huh.
So hi, how are you?
I'm good. It's so good to see you.
See you too. Wow. Okay, so Mercury Pisces, these are the gentle little sweet fish, and they tend to sometimes talk like really softly and very gently, because think about fish. They don't have any weapons, and one fish is going left and one fish is going right. So they can be a little bit like Danielle with the wishy-washy. Their minds can sort of be like, well, I could do this, I could do that. Not quite as much as Danielle, but a little bit. So it's a very soft placement. You're not prone to yelling. It's a very, very romantic, gentle. A lot of times people who have this, they love music and words and very tender, tend to love to write poetry. Have you ever been into poetry? No? Okay. Anything musical with you? Not so much? Okay. But in terms of language, how you use words, are you prone to not yelling too often? It takes a lot to get you verbally angry.
I wouldn't say I'm prone to it, but I wouldn't say I have a lot of trouble with it. But I do love language, and I was a literature major.
Oh, nice. What kind of literature did you study?
English.
Okay. All right. So the only negative of Mercury Pisces is, again, because it's water, it can be a little passive. So if there's something else going on in your chart to make you more aggressive, it's maybe because you have Mars, remember the red planet. If that happens to be next to your Mercury, it's all bets are off with everything I'm saying. But Mercury Pisces, it's gentle, it's soft. So again, anything gentle and soft, when you need to defend yourself, sometimes that's where it's a problem, because you don't have that chutzpah kind of thing sometimes. But you seem to think you have more of that. So like you may be the one person out of the 12 we did where I wasn't quite as accurate. Do you agree? She's muted again.
A little bit, but I mean, you've done my chart and you're phenomenal. I will say I can be very indecisive and have trouble like moving on to the next thing.
Yes, because the fish are kind of like indecisive. Remember I said wishy-washy. So your brain, you're kind of like Danielle, you're weighing things. It's a little different, but it's kind of the same kind of energies. There are little subtle differences between all of them. So Shelley, I think we did all of everybody and we did it in an hour. That's like amazing.
I'm muted still. I'm busy talking to nobody. Sorry about that. Okay. Yes, we
so
did.
If anyone has a couple questions, I can stick around a little bit and answer them.
That was the question. Does anyone have any other questions? If I forgot ask your question and you still have one you wanted to say, because there's a ton of things in the chat now, feel free to just unmute yourself and go ahead and ask Leslie. Got Lynn Davis as her hand up. Go for it, Lynn. Wait, you're muted.
Oops.
There we go. There you go.
My question was about the adopted person. And what I meant to say was he doesn't know his birth city. He knows his birth date, but he doesn't know his birth city or time.
But he knows the country?
He's United States, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that can still be accurate. You can still look up their Mercury sign. Even without the time, it's probably going to be pretty accurate.
Okay, so if he knows his state, then
that helps too a little bit, yeah. But if he has no idea if it's morning, noon, or night?
No.
No, okay. You're still going to be like 70% accurate with the chart, and it would take an astrologer to rectify it. But that just takes time and asking a lot of weird questions to try to figure out where all the planets were at the moment of birth.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Krista, you had a fast question. Go ahead and you can just say it to Leslie.
Well, I was just curious about two signs being the same. I assume that means it's a good thing. Is it, or is it, can you talk about it?
No, it's wonderful. It's easy. It's beautiful. It's simple. Love it.
Is that for all signs?
All signs, yeah. You love being with your little teammates. Yeah, you think the same way. That's why, like with the moon signs, Krista, my way of describing moon signs, because moon is emotions, my moon is in Taurus. So that means emotions come through the sign of how I described Laura with the bull, like, you know, solid, steady. I don't like too much change. I don't like a lot of stress. If you put me in an elevator and I get trapped in an elevator, I am emotionally not going to do very well. I'm going to get very emotional. And people who don't know how to take care of me when I'm in that state would be people who have moon and fire, because fire people will be like, get over it. Don't worry about it. We'll get out of here. And that's not going to help me. They don't have the same way of understanding how I deal with my emotions and what I need. So for example, I gave this example in the class that I did for my advanced students. I have a sister whose moon is in Aries and my moon is in Taurus. So we do the same thing we just did for Mercury, only now we could do the same thing with just the emotions. So my mom, you know, died about 1.5 years ago, and on the anniversary of her death, I called her up and I said, you know, I'm just so sad, I miss her, and it's just like so difficult knowing she's not around. And my sister with the moon in Aries, which is like Maria with her Mercury in Aries, she said, well, Leslie, you should be so happy that she died in such a pleasant, nice way, and this is a day to celebrate her, and we need to like move on and celebrate her life. And I was like, wait a minute, oh my God, emotionally, she is completely in fire mode and I'm in earth mode. All I wanted was her to hold space for my emotions, and all she wanted to do was plow through and fix it. So that's where, if you find somebody who has the same as you, that means when I'm upset and I call another moon and Taurus person, I'll be comforted. Same thing with words. if I need to talk to somebody, I need talking to someone who has a similar or a sympathetic kind of wiring. So earth and water get along more easily, and air and fire get along. It's when you cross-pollinate that it can get tricky. And I describe all that in the book.
Okay, I'll go through a couple of these kind of quick. Can you do someone's chart if they don't know their time of birth?
Yes.
Okay. Do Mercury in Gemini and Mercury in Virgo get along romantically?
Mercury in Gemini, Mercury, Virgo. Yeah, that's good because they're both considered exalted placements. They're different. It's air and earth. It's nice. There's no big problem there with that combo.
What sign is the most psychic?
Well, some would say Pisces or Scorpio, but it's not. That's not a good answer because there are certain things that are in a chart that will tell you if somebody's really intuitive and psychic. So it's more complicated than just saying sun sign.
What if you're nothing like what was described?
It's because there's another planet that is affecting your Mercury. And I warned you in the beginning that that would happen because this is baby food astrology. We're just looking at a very simplified way of showing how astrology works. The reason why I do this is that you still will hear people giving descriptions of how they use words and how they talk and how it's pretty accurate, but you really have to have your birth chart read to find out the nuances of why that wasn't particularly accurate for you.